Aeolian Hall brings a lot of people together. I believe that there's some sort of magic in this place, and I believe that everybody that steps into Aeolian Hall for the first time will feel that magic.
The Aeolian Hall has quite a rich history in our community. It started actually back in the 1940s with a hall that burned down in the 1960s.
Clark Bryan bought the hall in 2004 and began the process of turning it over into a charitable organization. He's been able to do so much with starting El Sistema Aeolian, the Pride Men's Chorus, the Rebel Heart Collective, and again really raising that culture of excellence in East London.
I decided to launch a UNESCO and TED award-winning program called El Sistema here at the Hall. Wasn't sure if it was going to work in this community, but it's a free after-school music program for kids who would not normally have the opportunity to have an enriched music program.
A program like El Sistema has a huge impact on the youth in that it gives them confidence and it gives them the tools necessary to escape the poverty, whichever kind of poverty they're facing in all its different forms.
It's fun and very collaborative sometimes. People provide you a lot here.
I wanted to join because I really never got to be in programs like this because of my disabilities.
We have a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds among our participants, so we have the opportunity for kids all over London from different backgrounds and ethnicities and family backgrounds to be able to be part of a team together without any of those barriers you might see with other traditional organizations.
Music to me is mostly my life because I love listening to it, and so joining this program made it better for me.
I already know 2 instruments. Wait, make that 3 because I know a bit of piano, violin, and a bit of recorder.
Some of the children are from refugee situations or they're immigrants. Just being around them and the joy that they have and learning from them has really, for me, been a personal growth.
Everything that I see in our programming, our education programs, is all about giving opportunities for people to be inspired and get different perspectives through art and culture. We launched Pride Men's Chorus London, what would normally be called a gay men's chorus in the rest of the world. We decided to open it up to men of all gender identifications. Its purpose is to enjoy music and through the experience of performance help open minds and hearts.
Clark and I just thought it would be a really good social experience for the kids to work together with Pride Men's Chorus. We first had that experience when we had a concert with Matt Albert and the men's chorus was singing backup.
The idea of the synergy between the men, many of whom were ostracized when they came out of the closet as gay men, and many of the children in our program, actually many don't have parents. So the idea of coupling up that socially has been a really remarkable thing for me, and we've already heard feedback about it and how it's positively impacting lives.
As soon as we heard and saw what potential that had, we said, we got to do this more often. So we have done it twice since. When people perform music in a group, it's more than just music. It's also a group expression.
Aeolian Hall is unique in what it offers to London in terms of the arts and culture, in terms of what it is doing within Old East Village, but also the greater community.
The musical productions are structured with a view to try to make music accessible to everyone, different kinds of music accessible to everyone. So there's jazz, there's classical, there's roots, there's contemporary, there's singer-songwriter. There are all these different facets of this great field of music, and we try and bring some of each into the Aeolian because they each have kind of their own demographic and their own audience.
We launched a new professional orchestra called Rebel Heart Collective, trying to change the lens on classical music and the access point to classical music.
I don't think we should distinguish between classical music and other kinds of music. I think that there's some barriers that are artificial that shouldn't be there. I know that the experience I have of teaching, I've been teaching for a long time, that I have students who say to me that music's made them a better person.
Being a classical pianist and coming from that tradition, I really believe that serious changes need to happen because it is still very much held in the hands of the elite in our society, which was never the intention.
Aeolian Hall is a really professional venue from the way that it's run, the ticket sales, the people that come here, they're all here to listen to music. They're music lovers. So for me, I always get the most nervous when I play here at Aeolian Hall because I feel like as soon as I step onto the stage, the people here are here for a show.
There is a kind of magical resonance to the place, and the moment you first make a note of music, it just rings through the hall in this magical way. And you know right away it's going to be an amazing concert. I hope Aeolian Hall is around for hundreds and hundreds of years. I think it's well on its way. I hope they keep the doors open and keep the music flowing because what they're doing there is very, very special. And I can't wait to see what's next.
So I sort of knew what I wanted from a performance hall, and when I walked into this space, I knew this is where I wanted our very first show to play.
You know, singing and making music is really important to me, but it's not all that music is about. It's about getting together.
When I play here, it always feels like I'm with friends. The hall itself is almost like a person to me.
There are all these facets in the Aeolian that are kind of bubbling away, and it's so different than most venues that you would see in terms of what they do. Here it's really limitless. It's a community in itself.
So I've never had a life without music. I can't imagine what that would be like. The hall is wonderful, the volunteers are fantastic, the people that are behind the scene, the ones that are working so hard at the bar, selling tickets.
The volunteer experience here is amazing. It's like extended family. Meet nice people and you become friends with lots of them.
We couldn't survive without the volunteers. The volunteers are the core of Aeolian and El Sistema. There's very few paid positions, so we really rely on the volunteers to do all the other jobs and make the hall run.
This place has a long history of being the center of its community, and I think because of Clark and the people that work here and volunteer here, it continues to have that role in this community.
The Aeolian Hall, it needs volunteers because it's a community centre, a focal point. It needs people who believe in what's happening.
Aeolian has grown in that when I first came, there probably were, maybe half a dozen, 10 shows in a month. Now, some months we can have a show 5-6 nights a week.
The future of Aeolian Hall, in my vision, is strong and bright, and it continues to grow more and more as a place where people come to have their soul nurtured in the performances that they experience.
I feel that we're an organization that's open to change and experimentation and risk-taking. Every program we've launched here, every step we've taken, we've never had the money to do it. Unfortunately, the majority of the world does not work that way. The majority of the world is paralyzed in fear and is not willing to take risks. So we hope to set an example of achievement through risk-taking as a really important role that it's maybe not one that people think of first and foremost, but the story of the Aeolian is basically against the odds.
If somebody is doing something good and it works and it's the right thing for the community, you can't not support it.
It's all about values in the end. It's all about who we are as people. We sometimes lose sight of where we're going, who we are, what we believe. And if the Aeolian can act as a catalyst to remind us of that, that is really in my heart to be at the foundation level for what we do here. Lesley, so great to see you today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I'm so excited to get caught up.
Me too. And it's just so good to see your face.
I know. I can hardly wait till we can get together in person and have a glass of wine and talk about the good old pandemic days.
Oh gosh.
Well, let's start out with going way back. And how did you get your start in music? I know some of your story, but I don't know all of it.
Well, when I was in the elementary school, I was life was terrible. I was facing multiple learning disabilities, and nobody knew what they were. So I was just like shipped into remedial class after remedial class. You know, it was like treated very, very poorly as a result. So when everybody auditioned for the school musical, you know, when I was in grade 8, and they were doing Tom Sawyer's Adventures, and out of a school of like close to 500 kids, I was the only one not cast in the musical. And I was like, I guess I can't sing. And singing is the same as laughing and crying and sighing. It's like exactly the same thing. So it just like completely shut me down.
Good old education system.
You know, awesome. And then 2 days before high school began, I moved to Milton with my mother. And by this time I had my identification with my dyslexia, like every kind of dyslexia you can name, dyseidetic, dyscalculic, dysphonetic, like you name it, and I do it backwards. I even play backwards. So I play my mom caught me a couple times when I took like a handful of lessons, and I would play the bass clef with my right hand and the treble clef with my left hand. The correct notes, but just reversing.
That's a great party trick.
I know.
I don't think I could do that one.
Oh man. So still today I play the chord structure with my right hand and the melody often with my left hand, which is crazy. But then I didn't take any piano after that. So anyway, moved to Milton with my mom, and I went to a new high school that was called E.C. Drury High School, and it was for deaf kids and for hearing kids, because I'm also hearing impaired. So when I was in grade 10, I think I was in grade 10, my English teacher said, "Are you going to audition for the school musical?" And I was like, "Well, no, because I can't sing. Why would I audition for the school musical?" And he said, "Well, you're a little bit different. I think you might really like drama." So I auditioned for the school show, and I was cast as the hearing Hoddle and the hearing Frumacera, because there was a deaf cast and a hearing cast, and we did the production simultaneously, both doing the same role at the same time. And so then, after I finished high school, I decided to apply to 3 different universities and a college. I applied to OCA for Ontario College of Fine Art for visual art, and University of Windsor for acting, and Laurier for music, and York for fine art. And then I decided, and I was accepted across the board, but I thought I can ruin my voice before I can ruin any like artistic ability or whatever. So I chose Laurier, and that was it. Well, I was finishing my first graduate degree. I stayed at Laurier I did an honors degree, and then I did an opera diploma after that. And when I started that opera diploma, a friend of mine who had recently graduated from Windsor said, "You should just crash the Stratford auditions." So I was like, "Yeah, okay." When I got to the audition, I remember it was on my birthday. He said, "It was your birthday yesterday." And they said, what Gilbert and Sullivan did you bring? And I said, "Well, I don't know any, actually. I brought some Puccini." Oh, all right, sure. And I remember during the audition, the book fell off the piano, and I just kept going, and they were like, "Awesome, can you come back for a dance call?" I was like, "Sure, no problem." Tore around Toronto looking for like jazz Oxfords and types, singer across my forehead. So, did the dance audition, and my friend who told me that to crash the audition, he didn't get cast in the season, but I got cast in the show. And so then I started my extended tenure there, and that's what kind of got me going.
Okay, I need to go back, and there's a little gap there for me to understand, which is you went to this new high school, you got cast in the musical. How'd it go?
It went fine. One of my deaf friends, who's actually a really famous, his name's Anthony, he's a well-known TV actor now. He was in Mr. Holland's Opus as well as the deaf adult kid. Anyway, he used to sign me, "I can hear you, you're so loud." So anyway, it was fine. It was lots of fun. And I thought, hey, this is like, there's a reason it's called doing a play, right? Or playing an instrument, because ultimately it should be a pleasurable experience and fun. So,
but I don't get it. So you were kind of labeled as the girl who couldn't sing and couldn't do the musical, and then suddenly you got the courage to do this. Like, what happened in between?
Well, I got the identification with my learning disabilities.
Okay.
It's a whole slew of things, like 12 different things that I do a little bit differently. I don't call them disabilities, I call them differences. And then I started doing motivational speaking. The school boards would call me in to say why they shouldn't do cuts to special education. But then I had a whole toolbox of what I needed to do to learn. So it's not that right? And so in order to be identified with a disability, you have to be of an ability as well. And so it turned out in the testing that I'm in fact quite the opposite of not intelligent, that I'm on the high extreme of the other way. It's just that I do some things backwards or differently, or I see things in a different way. So that just gave me the confidence I needed, I think, to kind of learn. And then with that learning came, and it was also different people, not my mother saying, "You're smart and you're, funny and, intelligent and pretty." And I'd be like, "Yeah, you're my mother. What are you going to tell me, that I'm fat and ugly and you dress me funny? Like, that's not going to happen." So it was strangers believing in me and saying, you could do this. Like, you could probably do this. But still in my brain, I've never really recovered from that. I'm still kind of like, I can't believe people pay me to sing. And I'm like, what? I got that? And okay.
So is that kind of a hangover from the labeling?
I think so.
Early on? Yeah.
Yeah.
The judgments that are passed on young people all the time, even in our current system, right?
Yeah.
Anything from IQs to, you're not good at art, or you should go into science and all that kind of stuff, which is, I just think, the most dangerous and irresponsible kind of thing that any teacher or any system could do to a child. But
totally.
Don't get me started.
Well, in my studio too, my motto is, everybody has a voice, and so my whole thing is discover your voice, right? You just need to discover it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you I just want to go back still. I want people to really understand. So you discovered, of course, that you have different ways to do things, but how did you figure out how to do them? Like,
I've never known any other way, really.
Did people show you how to do them, or did you figure it out?
For the most part, I just figured it out. And sometimes I figured it out very badly. I mean, even when I was doing my master's, I remember a colleague, we had this assignment, and we had to research 3 composers and then 3 blah, 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 blah. There was this whole chart thing that we had to fill out. And I did mine, instead of doing mine this way, I did mine this way. And my friend was like, "I don't know how you got that to work, because it works brilliantly, but you can't hand that in because you will colossally fail, because the professor has asked you to do it this way. You have to do it this way. You can't do it sideways." I was like, "Well, why?" "Because it works better." And he was like, "Lesley, you just got to redo it." So I, many tears were shed. Yeah,
How did you get the
I don't really
courage?
know. I just
How did you get the courage to really be convinced that you could figure this out?
well, yeah, I think in part, pretty well anything I do, it's because there's nobody else who's going to do it for me. So,
So you became self-reliant. Now, was that your mother's voice? Was it these other people that were saying you are smart and all that kind of stuff? Is that really what did it, or did you have some sort of epiphany, or
well, I was raised by a single parent. So definitely that had a good part to play in how I approach things. But my mother was also, she received her degree, I think, like the year before I received mine. so she went back to school and did her degree at night. But she was always like of the philosophy that if you want to live in a clean house, you help clean the house. If you want to eat the meal, you help prepare the meal. If you want to, if you have big hair, Lesley, you have to learn how to control that mass. You just have to learn how to do it, right? And then as a single person, and as you know, I have my lovely soul place, my cottage. So sometimes it's just about problem solving, because as an artist, especially over the past 2 years, I haven't been able to afford anybody to help. So I was just like, I guess I better do that myself, because it has to get done. It just has to get done. So you just do it. I also like to do, like, when I'm feeling completely overwhelmed, I think, okay, I have to do something every day at which I will be successful. Something that makes me feel like I can survive this. So I've made sure that I'm doing a little bit of sewing every day, a little bit of art. I have my fur babies and my parrot. So I just try and do things that make me feel okay. Yeah, to kind of balance it out.
Let's talk about the music that you sing, and maybe you can relate it to your first experiences. But what music are you drawn to?
I love music, any kind of music that tells a good story. As long as it has an awesome story, then that's my bag. I just love that. Whether it's opera or musical theater or jazz, I'm all about the story. Now, mind you, I think it's my job, as I trained really as an actor first, and then and then I was a singer, and then people were like, "Really, you act?" Often in what I do, people they put a very firm line in the sand. If you are a singer, there's no way you could know how to act. And if you're an actor, you can't be a legit singer. You must be like a not legit singer, not a classical singer. So I love songs that tell a good story. If they have a huge range, I'm into that too, because I do have a big range, and so I like to be able to utilize all of it. And I really, really like one of the songs that I sang for your program was called Stars in the Moon. And I love songs that make you laugh and then bang, you're weeping, right? I love that dichotomy of something that is funny is also incredibly tragic, because that's the flip side of the same coin, I think. So that's any kind of music that tells a good story, has a good range. I like the melody, it's not dorky. Then that's good. Now, mind you, I have to be like paid to sing Baroque music.
Oh, come on.
Well, I like some of it, but I'm just like, do I want Christmas dinner? Okay, I'll sing Messiah. Yeah, I'll do it.
Why?
I want Christmas dinner. Well, it's grown on me. I think actually, going back to training, when I was doing my training, I started as an alto who could hit a high Z. And so they were like, no, it's really confusing. Your range is very confusing. And then just before I started my 4th year, they were like, nope, you're a soprano. You're not allowed to use your chest voice anymore. No can do. No more alto, no more contralto, no more of that. You're a soprano. And then for my grad recital, my teacher assigned 4 Handel arias, like coloratura, running passages, Handel soprano arias that I thought I was gonna, they were gonna pop my head off. They were so hard to sing, because Handel, depending on your tessitura, where your song is written, Handel for soprano is just like right here. It's just right there. And so, I mean, I'm fine singing Verdi as the soprano, but Handel as the soprano is it just feels uncomfortable. So I think that recital, singing those 4 Handel arias, really kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, quite literally.
Vivaldi's like that too. I mean, you think about Cecilia Bartoli singing those crazy arias that just fly all over the place.
Yeah.
So, what did you end up singing at Stratford?
My first season, I did Mikado, and I was the understudy for Cecily in The Importance of Being Earnest, which was like super fun. Loved that. And it was very interesting because when I auditioned for that, they didn't know, the director did not know I was in the musical, the Gilbert and Sullivan. They just thought I was in the normal company, right? And the director was David Williams, who was the artistic director, and he's British. And he said, "Well, what part of London do you come from?" And I was like, "What? I like
Piccadilly.
I'm from Waterloo, eh?" So, so I did that, and then the next year I did Pirates of Penzance and Cyrano de Bergerac and Twelfth Night, and so I really crossed the field. But I've always been very into performing recital in recital format, and what I like to do when I do that is choose a theme. And then I can choose whatever kind of repertoire I want. So I can do some opera, I can do some jazz, I can do some musical theater, I can do some art song and some French melody. It's really whatever fits in with my theme.
So let's segue into more towards the present. Let's forget the pandemic for the moment.
La 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 la.
What's your music making look like? Like, how do you spend your days, and what kinds of projects do you work on?
BC, like before COVID, or
BC
before COVID. Well, I moved to London. I don't know, when did I move to London? Less than about 20 years ago, maybe. I don't know, when I was like
that long.
4. I don't know. I think so.
Okay.
We're old. Anyway, because I think you were one of the first people I met here, actually. But I opened my studio here, and now I have 2 studios. I have one here and I have one in Windsor. And so I teach both singing and acting. So, and I've also taught teaching of singing and acting, which is loads of fun as well. I spend time doing artwork. I'm a textile artist chiefly now, and I used to be a printmaker, but I like textile more because it's more sculptural and tactile, and you can touch it and it keeps you warm. So before COVID, the year before COVID, I was very busy. I did Figaro in Windsor, and La Notte di Figaro, and I played Marcellina, which was so much fun. Just love that role. Again, Mozart, somebody who sits right here if you're singing soprano, but if I'm singing a little bit lower, it's like my comfort zone. I also did Susanna here with Peck Productions, played Mrs. McLean, and I had the best lines in all of opera in that show. Oh my goodness, I just love doing that show. Oh, it was so much fun. In fact, I played the villain, right? One of the female villain. And one night when I was exiting the theater, I heard this woman say to her friend, "I hate that woman." And I was like, yes! I am despised. It was awesome. And that year I also did a production of My Name is Alice in Hamilton. So, and also before COVID, I was a motivational speaker for children. So I would tour across North America doing presentations to school boards. They would sort of either send me to every school within the board, or they would park me in one school and then bring every kid in the board to hear me present. So that kept me super busy. Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard you do a presentation like that, how inspired I was and how it got me really thinking. about the different ways people learn and how bad our education system is for one size fits all, right?
It is. We really do have to think outside the box in pretty well everything. There's always more than one way to do anything, right? So I did that, and I also have taught at Western and Windsor, and also at George Brown. I taught there for a while too. So that kept me busy, and then now I don't know what else.
Very busy. All right. Well, so we have to move into COVID.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Shutting down my studios and then opening and then shutting them down and then opening and then shutting them down was extremely, extremely difficult. I'm also my mother's caregiver, and that has proven to be very problematic as her health deteriorates, which over COVID, it's very bad. So when COVID started and I had to close my studios, I thought, well, two things happened. I thought, well, I can bring my dog out. I only had one then. I can bring my dog to the studio because there are no students out here, right? And so I brought him out, and he lifted his leg on my grand piano. So I was like, oh, dude, you are so busted. Get back in the house. So that was a no-go anymore. And then I started doing these 3:30 live concerts. So every day at 3:30, I would present a concert on Facebook, and just for free, hour and a half long, with no intermission, at the same time as, because of the stress in my life, fighting acid reflux and GERD. Oh my goodness.
God.
Right? Because of the extreme stress, like no income, absolutely no income. But I did over 100 of them, and they were always like theme based, or I would take requests, and then I went through every letter of the alphabet. So I'd be like, today was brought to you by the letter C, and today was brought to you by the letter D. And I went, I even found songs that started with X and Z, and so I did that. And I kept up doing a fair number of textiles, which made me kind of calm.
You don't have a show and tell available for that, do you?
Well, I can maybe, if I unplug, I have one that I could show you.
Oh, maybe we can do that right at the end if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll also do that right at the end. Or I can send you pictures too, and you can put those up. I'm hoping to have a friend of mine is the manager of Ye Olde Town Hall in Ailsa Craig. So I'm hoping when they are allowed to open the hall again, that I'll be able to do a recital and an art show at the same time there. So with my textiles. So I did the 100 concerts, and then I was like, wow, this is like tiring. And I didn't know, that people were sending me all this stuff on Facebook Messenger, like it was sort of hidden or something. I don't know. But about 2 weeks ago, I found all these messages from like news people, news stations, and I was like, oh well, it's a little late now, but I could have used some help way back when. As a Canadian artist, freelance artist, and I don't have a day job, right? I'm just I do what I do. And single, so I don't have, it's not a 2-income household. I've purchased rental properties through the years, which of course were vacant during COVID because there are no students. So I had none of that income. I have 3 properties. My property here in London is a duplex, upper and lower. So I rent out the second floor. And then my house in Windsor, my studio is on the lower level of the house. And then I rent out the bedrooms on the rest of the house. And then I have my sole place, my cottage. And so I was able to rent out my cottage to sort of try and make ends meet. But I guess, well, because any artist knows, when we are freelance musicians, our income is pretty crummy. So we try and make money other ways. Mine is through my rental property. And our expenses are quite high. So we try and, in order to not pay a whole lot of tax, we try and have them almost even. Right? Like your expenses are so high and your income is so low that it basically is like null and void. But as a result, I didn't qualify for CERB.
Of course.
Nothing. Right? And I was like, well, what about my rental income? Like I had a lot of that coming in, and I always, I claim it all. And they were like, no, that's passive income, doesn't count toward your business. I'm like, yeah, but my business is in those homes. So like the structure is the business. No. So no income.
Started on that one. Yeah.
No income.
One year I was audited and they thought that my music scores that I buy, right, because I play the piano, was for my own personal pleasure. Yeah. And I said, well, yeah, I do love what I do. Well, we're not going to give you all that.
Yep.
I said, well, how much are you going to give me? Well, maybe 80%. I said, well, what if I say 100%? He said, well, maybe we'll meet somewhere in between then. And I'm like, totally effective.
I know. I mean, and also in the process of all this, I was audited through, for all my income tax. And they were like, oh, you owe HST or GST or whatever from 20 years ago.
Oh, God.
And I said, what? And they were like, no, you should have been charging, tax on everything that you do on all your lessons. And we had already gone through this with my presentations, because my presentations were non-profit, were for nonprofit organizations, right? So I actually had to pay tax going back since I was like 18 and started doing presentations. They were like, well, you can always contact everybody and ask for the HST. I was like, from like 25 years ago? No, that's not going to work. And then, but my accountant, that she figured out, she said, no, you don't owe, HS, they are totally wrong. So, but it cost me thousands of dollars, right?
I'm sure.
For both times.
Oh,
every single time I
God.
get audited, I'm like, oh my God, or they'll say, well, you work for the Dufferin Peel School Board. I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, well, I can't charge mileage. I was like, you work for the government. No, you can't charge your mileage, but I'm a self-employed artist.
Yeah. It's a lot of teaching. I remember somebody said, well, why do you have so many pianos? I'm like, you don't ask a doctor how many tools they have to do their job. Like, come on. Like, anyway, it's tough. I know it's really tough. And the pandemic has made it so much worse. And I just want to sort of finish off maybe today our conversation around what kinds of reflections or advice you have for the future. Like, I mean, I know we don't have crystal balls and we don't know when this is all going to end and so on, but what do you say to another fellow artist, let's say, or someone else in another profession that's hit as hard? What do you say to them to keep going?
Now that's a hard question.
I know.
I remember a couple of times thinking to myself, man, who's going to motivate the motivational speaker today? I feel like, whoa, dragging my fanny up on that stage to do those presentations. Those presentations were very, very hard on the soul. I don't know. I mean, one thing that I have said to myself about pretty well everything, including like every single bag of chips, I mean, I've had a lot of bags of chips. So
we won't
I'm a
talk about
chipaholic.
that sort of thing now. Okay.
Should join a 12-step group. I know. But I mean, I might as well look at my fanny and say, incoming every time. But I remind myself every day that everything is temporary. Everything. The good things in our life, the bad things in our life, the kind of like mediocre meh things, everything is temporary. So even when it's hard to get motivated, you just have to think, well, hey, we survived the pandemic, touch wood. And that's pretty good. We helped take care of other people during the pandemic. We didn't turn into jerky people during the pandemic, which I think in today's age is saying something, because I've noticed a lot of malicious
people,
weird behavior. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also, problem solving, like we just have to problem solve your way through pretty well everything these days. And that can be very fatiguing, right? Very fatiguing. It can be hard to take care of the instrument when you're it might be okay to kind of close the lid on I'm sitting in my studio, close the lid on the piano, right? And not have it affect you. But as a singer, you're breathing over that instrument, you're being sick over that instrument, you are laughing over it, crying over it, If you don't get a good sleep, you're a little bit, toasty in the morning. So I think self-care is important. I don't think I've been practicing very good self-care, but I have been trying to remind myself that everything is temporary. And I've also tried to do something every day that brings me just a little bit of joy.
So it sounds like you're doing some appreciation, like exercises, like sort of I'm grateful for, and also just I mean, you're a routine person, right? Like you have really good routines. I remember you saying how you get up really early and try to get like your game going.
Yes.
Like, yeah. And that, I think routine is a really important thing during the pandemic, like to have some sort of sense of a schedule, because I mean, I don't have a choice, right? Like, and you probably don't either. You got to try and figure it through. But like, if you imagine someone who is retired or someone who isn't working because of the pandemic, it must be really hard, right? To think, okay, what's my day going to look like? And
well, totally. I know for my mom, who is both retired and having some health issues, I've had to say to her, we have to make appointments when it fits my schedule. Like, I mean, for people that don't have a schedule, they find it very difficult to come up with that. But I think as artists, we have that advantage because we've had to do that for ourselves, since since we started being artists, right? Like you either have to come up with the work, or you have to come up with the, half hour or hour or however long you're going to practice every day. You have to set this time available for your craft and for your income, right? To do all the biz behind the biz and all of that. It's essential.
Yeah, I think for myself right now, I mean, playing a little bit every day has been just amazing for me because I've been doing the same thing. I record every day for YouTube, and but what's really heavy is I think I was talking to the Arts Council the other day, and they said, "Oh, we're really not worried about your organization. Like, this one's closed down, this one's closed down, this one's closed down." I'm like, you need to worry about us because I worry every single day, and I don't know how we've gotten to keep our programs going to this point, but coming out of this is going to be so much harder, right? When the government stops all supports and we're expected to somehow immediately have all of this revenue. Right now we're at 50% for capacity. Well, we can't really do any like concerts that way. And apparently, the province added alcohol and food. We can now do alcohol and food. I'm just like, well, everything's canceled. So that means nothing. But yeah, every day
totally
I figure out what grant could I apply for. Oh, what could we start for a fundraiser now? And
yes,
I want to keep my staff employed. They're all employed. Like, I mean, it's just I try not to think about it too much, but you have to, right? Like you have to think like, what's
that?
Like
Yes,
3 months, 6 months, all that stuff. And I can imagine on a personal, like individual artist level, it must be equally perplexing, if not more, because you're trying to figure out, okay, do I start my in-person lessons, or can I do these online lessons with voice? Well, not particularly well, right?
I tried to explain it to my mom. I said, start singing happy birthday. And she started singing. And then I started like 3 seconds later. And she said, are you singing a harmony? I was like, no, that's what teaching voice is like. And there's, oh my God, like when you're playing the accompaniment, the singer is like 4 seconds ahead of you or 4 beats ahead of you. But another thing that has really helped thinking about that, but it's so hard, is to stay in the present, right? Because really the only way we can take care of the future is to take care of the present. And we can't do anything about the past. And by thinking about the past, we're really screwing up our present. But as an artist, people have been saying to me, well, once the pandemic's open, over, you're going to be able to go and like do your auditions and everything. I was like, no. So here's the thing. Like every gig that I get as a performer, it's like 2 years in advance.
Right. Well, and if
Right?
the theaters are still there, I don't know if you saw the article in the Globe about Buddies and Bad Times. I mean, I know that bartender who was featured in that, and she was just let go, and the executive director, and all of the BIPOC directors. And I know there's more than just the economic, but it is the economic as well. And
Totally.
like, what's going to be there to support artists coming out of this? These organizations are going to need to recover, first of all, and be able to afford staff, and then be able to, figure out what kind of productions are going to, bring people back, and if people are comfortable enough coming back, and all those crazy unknowns, right? It's going to take some time. And the hard thing for me is doing a lot of these interviews with artists. I think I'm up over 80 of them. And, most people who can do frontline, like, I'm a pianist, you're a singer, we can do a show, or like we can online, right? But if you're the drummer, if you're the backup guitar person, like, you can't do that. And so many of them are getting out.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
they want COVID-proof industries.
Yes. Oh, I mean, and even singer friends of mine, a really good, really, really awesome baritone that I know, he was like, well, I'm just going into technology. I can't take it anymore, or they're retiring.
Teachers college. Some of them, like I have a conductor in my men's chorus who was freelancing, and he sat down and he said, I'm just looking at the recovery of this, and it's going to be some years before I can really see myself making a complete income out of this. I'm going to go to teachers college and teach music in the school, because that's much more reliable. Of course, if the province doesn't cut it, right?
Oh my goodness. And another thing during the pandemic, and I know so many of us artists have said this, during this most crucial time, and at other times, like, people do not ask dentists to be dentists for free. People do not ask any other profession other than maybe restaurants. They ask them to give food. But I mean, how many times have we been asked to perform for a fundraiser concert, or, and during the pandemic, what have people survived? How have they survived? By watching Netflix and listening to music and something that will feed their soul. And yet artists are the ones that are so incredibly suffering and thinking that they should leave their field because they can't do their field anymore.
It's about the values system, right, out there for what we do. And I think that's a piece we have to work on collectively, definitely. Maybe we can just talk briefly too about, recently London got the designation UNESCO City of Music.
Wow, I did not know that.
You didn't know that, and you live in London.
And
yes, so we're the only city in Canada, and I know, in the application we were a poster child. But now that you know that, does that mean anything to you? Like, do you see something coming out of that might support you in some way?
Okay, I'll make a comparison to something that I do know about UNESCO, and that is that at my soul place, my property at Long Point, behind my property is a UNESCO biosphere, which is protected, right? And so there are a few of us. Some people don't care at all. They just pillage the land and really don't care about the critters and the species at risk. But I definitely am there to leave the smallest negative footprint on the face of the planet as I possibly can, other than, like, I want to leave a positive footprint as in trees and butterflies. Like, one year I saved like 500 monarchs or something. But so the way I would see that is, hopefully people will value that sort of entity, or that creation of the UNESCO situation for the arts is just for music.
It's just for
but
music,
I don't know how that will play out, really.
Well, there's no money. I've been told that there's no money. Like, they don't.
Yeah, for sure.
The usual.
Yeah.
But I'm
But
trying.
it often doesn't mean that it's just like protected.
I think it means that we can communicate with other cities that, better, that have the designation. And I mean, they're still just starting to figure this out, but I'm going to see what I can do to help shape it. Like, one of my big things about it is UNESCO also has a program for well-being and education, that holding that tension between social and musical and or educational outcomes is a really important thing to me. So I want them to kind of incorporate that lens, especially coming out of the pandemic, with the amount of economic and social stresses we have in our city, including the whole music community. We need to be really part of that. But I'm hoping that, it maybe raises awareness and also works on the value system for the arts. In our city, that people understand how important the arts are and how they are vital for who we are as people, and they're a beacon for who we really are. Like, if you take away arts, it's all utilitarian and commercialization and greed, and it's the arts give us the hope, right? So I'm hoping.
Well, the arts are our society, really. They are our culture. They are our humanity. They are really what makes us human and what brings us alive. And everything is based on the arts, absolutely everything. If you buy a package of food, the package was designed by an artist. If you're listening to any music, if you listen to the radio, if you listen to Spotify, everything is based on the arts. It should be.
You go places based on that, right? On the arts and the culture of that place, like Stratford or Paris, France, or whatever. You wouldn't go to a city that's all industrial and utilitarian, right? Because that's not going to be very interesting for you to go to enjoy yourself. So, but I think, as you said, people expect us sometimes to do this for free, and they don't think about the economic element of what it takes to be an artist. And all those years of training, for example, and being able to have a place to put your piano and to do your work, and then you have you're open to pray from the auditor and stuff like that. you don't have that cushion of being part of a company that that's all looked
totally.
After. Just get your money after taxes kind of thing. It is.
And there's no other career also where you start training for that career when you're 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You've spent an entire life training to do what you do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just want to go someplace with you too, because I know you're really handy. So, as you've gone along, right? And I am too, right? You have had to do a lot of things on your own to make things happen. You talk about your rental properties, for example. What can you do? What kind of skills do you have?
Well, okay. I created and installed the entire facade of my cottage, which is all slab lumber. It's all recycled wood. So it all looks like the round red part. But I tell you, after I finished doing that, though, I had to brush my teeth like this. I couldn't move my arms. I was like, oh my God. And then from sawing everything with a skill saw, I was like, I hear mosquitoes. And then I was like, oh my God, tendinitis, right? And as a singer, musician, I was freaked out. So for 2 weeks, all I heard was mosquitoes. And then I was like, okay, I can bring earplugs from now on. So I did pretty well everything at my cottage. I built a lot of the furniture. I created all the floors, did the whole facade. And my most recent project at the cottage was I built a seawall using, are you sitting down? 25 skids of cement bags, hand carried up the driveway over the deck and placed by the water. Oh yeah. 60 pounds a bag.
Careful and protect those delicate hands of yours, for playing the piano.
I built a rock garden at one point, and my mom was visiting the cottage, and I dropped a rock and it crushed my finger, my index finger. And I called my friend Peter, who lives down the road, and I was like, Peter, I think I have to go to the hospital, because I crushed my finger. And he was like, Lesley, you play like, what are you doing? You play the piano. You are totally cut off from rock. You are not allowed to move another rock.
One winter, you know, when I bought the Aeolian, the roof was leaking. So I went up and Brian held onto my ankles while I patched the entire exterior rim of the roof. Right. And one time I was adjudicating a music festival in Toronto and I had my lunch break and I had to run home. It was a bitter, cold, snowstormy day. And something had burst in the basement and I had to do basic plumbing and repair a big burst. Right? It's just, you know, when you have to, right? Like it's that's what artists end up doing. They do a lot of things that you know, others would hire contractors for, but we can't afford it. And so you just
do it.
Yeah.
One time I was standing in my mother's kitchen sink, and her faucet was dripping, and she was like, "I am not hiring a plumber." I'm like, "What do I know from plumbing?" Anyway, so I'm standing in the kitchen sink, and I've got these vice grips, and I had already gone to the hardware store to figure out what I needed to do. I have the hardware store. By this point, I've opened a bottle of wine, which is beside me on
and
the
a bag
counter.
of chips too, right?
Right, you know, standing in the sink with these vice grips and the phone, you know, hooked under my chin, and I'm talking to him like, I can't get the cartridge out. Can I put it back in? And you know, he was like, no. Well, he said, is there anybody stronger there that can help you? I was like, I am single. Thanks for pointing that out. You know, do you think if there was somebody stronger, I'd be standing in the kitchen sink talking to you on the phone? No. Oh.
It's so great to talk to you, Lesley. I mean, you are such a remarkable person. And I'm so glad that we could get you to do this series. I really want to thank you again for doing that. And
I wish I had a do-over.
Well, I can't wait to get you back, you know, with an audience, because I think people will just love it, and your textiles too. So let's talk about that.
I'll take you. I'm gonna unplug here.
Sure.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just gonna take my little tablet-y thing here, and I don't know how to reverse the camera. I'm in my studio, as I said, but I have one of my first pieces here.
Oh wow. Oh,
so
beautiful.
This one was actually, it's called Narcissus. It's a series of daffodils done in pointillism fabric, what I call pointillism fabric. Anyway, it was auctioned off, you know, years ago for breast cancer research. That's why I called it the Narcissus, because Narcissus is, or the daffodil is the symbol for the Canadian Cancer Society. Anyway, it raised $8,000 for cancer research. And then the person that bought it donated it to me.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's one of my first pieces. It's about 8 feet tall and about 5 feet wide.
Is it like quilt work or something? It looks a little bit.
It's all quilt, just and beaded and
beaded as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
My parrot ate some of the beads, but that's okay. So anyway, so when you stand back from it, it doesn't look like a whole bunch of tiny little pieces of.
Yeah, you get the whole kind of landscape of it. Yeah. Wow, beautiful. Wow.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for that show and tell. And again, you know, let's talk about an opportunity to bring you to the Aeolian as well, and do that title with real people, and maybe we can figure out a way to hang some of these things and show them to people at the same time. That would be awesome.
Great. Thank you so much, Clark,
yeah,
for the
thank
opportunity.
you. And I know you're heading off to teach, so good luck with that. And
thank you.
Can't wait to catch up with a glass of wine and, you know, hopefully post-pandemic soon.
Yay, I'll bring the chips.
Okay, sounds good. Take care. Have a good one, eh?
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lesley, and this is my little Valentine's Day program for you. I've hung up my classical hat for this evening, and I'm just going to do some music tunes, movie tunes, musicals, and some old jazz standards that really kind of call to my name. I figure that when we sing about love, we sing about all sorts of different kinds of love. We sing about love of place, love of people, different kinds of people in our lives. So that's what I've chosen. What's it all about, Alfie?
to take more than we give? Or are we meant to be kind? And if only fools are kind, Alfie, then I guess it is wise to be cruel. And if life belongs only to the strong, Alfie, what will you lend on an old golden rule? As sure as I believe there's a heaven above, Alfie, I know there's something much more, something even non-believers can believe in. I believe in love, Alfie. Without true love we'd just exist, Alfie, until you find the love you've missed. You're nothing, Alfie. When you walk, let your heart lead the way, and you'll find love any day, Alfie. Alfie. Now you say you're lonely, you cry the long night through. Well, you can cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. Now you say you're sorry for being so untrue. Well, you can cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. You drove me, nearly drove me out of my head, while you never shed a tear. Remember, I remember all that you said. Told me love was too plebeian, told me you were through with me, and now you say you love me. Well, just to prove you do, come on and cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. You drove me, nearly drove me out of my head, while you never shed a tear. Remember all that you said. Told me love was too plebeian, told me you were through with me, and now you say you love me. Well, just to prove that you do, come on and cry me a river, cry me a river. I cried a river over you. Now the next piece that I'm going to sing is an arrangement that I wrote. By no means am I a story or a songwriter. I'm a storyteller by heart, in my heart, but I'm not a composer. But I did arrange this one a few years ago for an album that I wrote of Richard Rodgers material, or that I put together for Richard Rodgers material. My funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are affable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart? But don't change a hair for me, not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up with strings. These are a few of my favorite things. Cream-colored ponies and crisp apple strudels, doorbells and sleigh bells and schnitzel with noodles, wild geese that fly with the moon on their wings. These are a few of my favorite things. Girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes, silver white winters that melt into springs. These are a few of my favorite things. When the dog bites, when the bee stings, Okay. This, you cannot do a Valentine's concert without doing this particular piece. There is no way. Le ciel bleu sur nous peut s'effondrer et la terre peut bien s'écuyer. Peu m'importe si tu m'aimes, je m'en fous du monde entier. Tant que l'amour inondera mes matins, tant que mon corps frémira sous tes mains, peu m'importe les problèmes, mon amour, puisque tu m'aimes. J'irai jusqu'au bout du monde, je me ferai tendre en blonde si tu me le demandais. J'irai décrocher la lune, j'irai voler la fortune. Si, quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. De tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, la journée. Alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. Now recently the world lost Sondheim, so I thought I can't do a concert without singing a little bit of Sondheim for you. Somebody hold me too close. Somebody hurt me too deep. Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being alive. Being alive. Somebody need me too much. Somebody know me too well. Somebody pull me up short and put me through hell and give me support for being alive. Make me alive. Make me alive. Make me confused. Mock me with praise. Let me be used. Vary my days. But alone is alone. Now this is one of my favorite composers of all times. The first time I heard this composer, when I was, 27, 2 years ago, and I was listening to some Barbra Streisand material. I was just a kid, actually, and fell in love with this composer and these lyricists. So this is a piece written by Michel Legrand. The moon and I, we know each other well. I'm safe beneath its light. It passes by and sees but doesn't tell the secrets of the night. Like the sweet forbidden feeling deep inside me, the longing for the lover who's denied me, to feel him beside me. The moon and I pretend he's in my arms. Each night it hears me cry. And when I sleep, I dream that soon I'll tell my love some sunlit afternoon what no one knows but the moon and I. And just as the sea with the tides, I'm tied to the moon when it's full, so am I. The moon and I pretend he's in my arms. Each night it hears me cry. And when I sleep, I dream that soon I'll tell my love some sunlit afternoon what no one knows but the moon and I.
Now, I mentioned earlier that we fall in love with people, places, and things. We fall in love with nouns, basically. So I'm going to do some songs about places that we love and how they change our lives, really.
It's a lazy afternoon, and the beetle bugs are zooming, and the tulip trees are blooming, and there's not another human in view but us two. It's a lazy afternoon, and the farmer leaves his reaping, in the meadow cows are sleeping, and the speckled trout stop leaping upstream as we dream. A fat pink cloud hangs over the hill, unfolding like a rose. If you hold my hand and sit real still, you can hear the grass as it grows. It's a hazy afternoon, and I know a place that's quiet except for daisies running riot, and there's no one passing by it to see. Come spend this lazy afternoon with me. hear the grass as it grows. It's a hazy afternoon, and I know a place that's quiet except for daisies running riot, and there's no one passing by it to see. Come spend this lazy afternoon with me. Another song about place. And the relationship we have with it and how it changes our lives inexplicably. I'll never forget the people I met, braving those angry skies. I remember well as the shadows fell, the light of hope in their eyes. And though I'm far away, I still can hear them say, thumbs up, for when the dawn comes up, there'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after tomorrow when the world is free. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow. Just you wait and see. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover tomorrow when the world is free. Now I have one called The Girl from 14G. I think I'll save that one. All right, now this is a Bernstein, an old Bernstein piece that is pretty fantastic. I just love this one. Now the first way to lose a man, you've met a charming fellow and you're out for a spin. The motor fails and he just wears a helpless grin. Don't bat your eyes and say, what a romantic spot we're in. Just get out, crawl under the car, tell him it's the gasket, and fix it in 2 seconds flat with a bobby pin. That's a good way to lose a man. He takes you to the baseball game, you sit knee to knee. He says the next man up at bat will bunt, you'll see. Don't say, ooh, what's a bunt? This game's too hard for little me. Just say bunt, are you nuts? With one man out and two men on base and the left-handed batter coming up, he'll walk right into a triple play, just like it happened in the 5th game of the World Series in 1923. That's a sure way to lose a man. A sure, 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 sure way to lose a man. A dandy way to lose a man. Just throw your knowledge in his face, he'll never try for second base. 98 ways to go. The 3rd way to lose a man. The lifeguard at the beach that all the girlies adore swims bravely out to save you through the ocean's roar. Don't say, oh, thanks, I would have drowned in just 1 second more. Just push his head underwater and yell, last one in is a rotten egg, and race him back to shore. That's a swell way to lose a man. You found your perfect mate and it's been love from the start. He whispers you're the one to who I give my heart. Don't say, I love you too, my dear, let's never, never part. Just say, I'm afraid you've made a grammatical error. It's not to who I give my heart, it's to whom I give my heart. You see, with the use of the preposition to, who becomes the indirect object, making use of the word whom imperative, which I can easily show you by drawing a simple chart. That's a fine way to lose a man. A fine, 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 fine way to lose a man. A dandy way to lose a man. Just be more well-informed than he. You'll never hear, oh, promise me. Just show him where his grammar errs. Then mark your towels, hers and hers. Yes, girls, you too can lose your man if you will use my flawless plan. 100 easy ways to lose a man. I met a man without a dollar to his name, who had no traits of any value but his smile. I met a man who had no ear or claim to fame, who was content to let life pass him for a while. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life like the movie stars led. And he kissed me right here, and he said, I'll give you stars and the moon and a soul to guide you, and a promise I'll never go. I'll give you hope to bring out all the life inside you and the strength that will help you grow. I'll give you truth and a future that's 20 times better than any Hollywood plot. And I thought, you know, I'd rather have a yacht. I met a man who lived his life out on the road, who left a wife and kids in Portland on a whim. I met a man whose fire and passion always showed, who asked if I could spare a week to ride with him. But I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life that was scripted and planned. And he said, but you don't understand. I'll give you stars and the moon and the open highway and the river beneath your feet. I'll give you days full of dreams if you travel my way, and the summer you can't repeat. I'll give you nights full of passion and days of adventure, no strings, just one summer rain. And I thought, you know, I'd rather have champagne. I met a man who had a fortune in the bank, who had retired at age 30, set for life. I met a man and didn't know which stars to thank, and then he asked one day if I would be his wife. And I looked up, and all that I could think of was the life I had dreamt I would live. And I said to him, what will you give? I'll give you cars and a townhouse in Turtle Bay and a fur and a diamond ring, and we'll get married in Spain on my yacht today, and we'll honeymoon in Beijing, and you'll meet stars at the parties I throw at my villas in Nice and Paris in June. And I thought, okay, and I took a breath, and I got my yacht, and the years went by, and it never changed, and it never grew, and I never dreamed. And I woke one day, and I looked around, and I thought, I'll never have the moon.
The next piece was written by Irving Berlin, and you would never believe it by listening to it. It's just a crazy, risque piece. The most published piece of music, I think, was written by Irving Berlin, and it's White Christmas. Johnny was bashful and shy. Nobody understood why Mary loved him. All the other girls passed him by. Everyone wanted to know how she could pick such a beau with a twinkle in her eye. She made this reply: he's not so good in a crowd, but when you get him alone, you'd be surprised. He isn't much at a dance, but then when he takes you home, you'd be surprised. He doesn't look like much of a lover, but don't judge a book by its cover. He's got the face of an angel, but there's a devil in his eyes. He's such a delicate thing, but when he starts to squeeze, you'd be surprised. He doesn't look very strong, but when you sit on his knees, you'd be surprised. At a party or at a ball, I've got to admit he's nothing at all, but in an easy chair, woo, you'd be surprised. Mary continued to praise Johnny's remarkable ways to the ladies, and you know advertising pays. Now Johnny's never alone. He has the busiest phone almost every other day. A new girl will say he's not so good in a house, but on a bench in the park, you'd be surprised. He isn't much in the light, but when he gets in the dark, you'd be surprised. I know he looks so slow and so weary, but you don't know the half of it, dearie. He looks as cold as an Eskimo, but there's fire in his eyes. He doesn't say very much, but when he starts to speak, you'd be surprised. He's not so good at the start, but at the end of the week, woo, you'd be surprised. On a streetcar or in a train, you'd think he was born without any brain, but in a taxi cab, you'd be surprised. But in a taxi cab, you'd be surprised. Now, the first and only time I've ever heard this song is by Willie Nelson singing it. Without a song, the day would never end.
never bend. When things go wrong, a man ain't got a friend without a song. That field of corn would never see a plow. That field of corn would be deserted now. A man is born, but he's no good no how without a song. I got my troubles and woe, but sure as I know the Jordan will roll, I'll get along as long as a song is strong in my soul. I'll never know what makes the rain to fall. I'll never know what makes the grass so tall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song. I got my troubles and woe, but sure as I know the Jordan will roll, I'll get along as long as a song is strong in my soul. I'll never know what makes the rain to fall. I'll never know what makes the grass so tall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song.
This is one of those songs that talks about how our sense of place, we can fall in love with a place and it can change our lives. Just moved in to 14G, so cozy, calm, and peaceful. Heaven for a mouse like me, with quiet by the leaseful. Pets are banned, parties too, and no solicitations. Window seat with garden view, a perfect nook to read a book. I'm lost in my Jane Austen when I hear say it isn't so. Not the flat below. From an opera wannabe in 13G, a matinee of some cantata, Wagner's Ring and Traviata. My first night in 14G, I'll put up with Puccini, brew myself a cup of tea, crochet until she's feeny. 8:30, not a peep, except the clock tick-tocking. Now I lay me down to sleep, a comfy bed to rest my head, a stretch, a yawn, I'm almost gone then. Do it, oh, do floor, oh, do screw, da, 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 na, 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 whee! Now the girl upstairs wakes me unawares, blowing down from 15G, her reveille. She's scatting like her name is Ella. Guess who answers a cappella? Zoot doo doo Florida doy. Zoot doo doo Florida doy. I'm not one to raise my voice, make a fuss, or speak my mind, but might I query, would you mind if, could you kindly stop? that felt pretty good. That's a crazy one. I usually end with one other song, but it's not accompanied. Is that okay? I'll sing one more. I have to kind of turn this way. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright, blessed day, the dark, sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a